Hello, 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 hello. How's everybody doing? Not too much going on this week, at least for gaming. I'm not planning on doing this very long. This is just going to be like maybe an hour or so. It depends on how long all these segments take. I thought about just doing this offline, but I figured, just be nice just to stream this, and if it's easier just to clip, highlight it, and then just do the quick work, then it kind of helps that way as well. So this is going to be simply put just a rant stream. Normally, I'd have like gameplay in between. Not going to happen on this one. There's just a bunch of things I want to talk about. It's getting later in the evening. I don't really want to suddenly try to put together a 3-4 hour gaming stream. It's just not in the cards for me tonight. So I figured I'd get these couple of things out of my system now, because I'm not sure if I'm going to have a lot of time to stream over the weekend. So, I figured I get on here, get the stuff out of my system now before it's too late and I don't have the chance to later, and the news is kind of a little stale in comparison. So I thought I'd start. I thought I'd start with something a little more positive. At least something fun, something, kind of happy for me to talk about, rather than just, immediately going with the stuff that's making me angry or the stuff that's just kind of ruffling my feathers a little bit. I mean, I'm going to get to stuff that ruffles my feathers. Don't worry about that. For the time being, though, I want to at least start off on a happy note and at least kind of get the smiles going first before I completely shut it down. So, obviously, as a PlayStation guy, I've been PlayStation the entire generation, PS4, going to be transferring to PS5. And one of the things I've been clamoring a lot on the VCR podcast and just in general is that I want to know what the fucking thing looks like. I want to know, like, not the console, I want to know what it looks like on my screen. I want to know what my TV is going to show. I've been waiting forever to see what the UI is going to be. And we haven't gotten the full thing yet, but at the very least, we got some of it. And I will take that at this point. So with the playback speed up a little bit, so I'm not spending the entire 11 minutes watching this thing, we're going to go through it. Probably going to pause in between just to kind of show a little bit here and there. Otherwise, we're going to kick it off with something that's actually making me happy, which would be the state of play that showed off the user experience. And let's get into that right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Hideaki Nishino, and I head up PlayStation's platform planning and management team, which includes product and UX design. Today, we are finally going to give you a look at the PlayStation 5 user experience. We will see some of the
a month from launch, by the way,
together with the hardware network to deliver a truly next-generation experience. Our vision for a PS5 user experience is simple. We believe that your playtime is valuable and should be meaningful. PlayStation team members from all around the world work to deliver a PS5 experience that is completely centered on you, the player, connecting you with a great play and a passionate community of gamers. With a look and feel that's designed for 4K TVs, the PS5 user experience was built from the ground up to take advantage of the console capabilities, complementing the transformative games coming with this new generation. I should note that this video tour is from a pre-production environment on the PS5 console, so there may be a few small wrinkles or minor changes once the console launches in November. And now, let's check it out, courtesy of our own Sid Schumann.
Probably should have started just from this point, but
welcome to
whatever.
Your new PlayStation 5 console experience. This time, we started up from rest mode. We've already created an account and signed into PlayStation Network, so let's log in. In this case, I've resumed right where I left off in...
So right off the bat, the game is literally loaded from where you left off. Like that. I have been playing video games for at least 20 years. I'm 32. 20 is a safe bet because I think at 12 is when I was really starting to get heavy into it. But realistically, I've been playing games for 25 years, maybe a little bit more than that. Every time you start up a console, especially once you get into the disc era, when you had the main screens, waiting for your PlayStation 2 to go through all that stuff, waiting to get into the menus of PS3 and PS4. Same goes for all the Xboxes, same goes for a lot of Nintendo consoles. I mean, granted, when we were younger, back in the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo days, the cartridge was there, you turn the thing on, there's no bullshit logo, it just starts the game up. So it's a little bit different. In this case, this console in rest mode has gone from literally being in standby to just ready to go in like a second flat. Now, when we think of like our computers coming out of rest mode, yeah, I usually can go back, same deal, pretty quick. But for a console, this is pretty big. So the second I saw that and realized that rest mode it's this quick, I'm like, oh, okay here. Now, I don't know how many times I put it in rest mode personally. Usually, if I turn that console off, it's because I'm leaving period and I don't need it to be in rest mode. But, hey, that's still pretty sweet.
Sackboy: A Big Adventure. And here, we're looking at PlayStation 5's Control Center. From here, it's one click and we're right back into the game. But let's take a moment and look around.
Side note as well, the Control Center, which is all that you're seeing here, I don't hate it. Although I will say that as it stands, I think it's a little big. I mean, it's kind of like the same size of what the PS4 main menu is currently. And I mean, actually, it's a little bit bigger. So, but I mean, I guess you're not supposed to be looking at the game at this point. It's more just in the background. Again, it seems like they could have downsized it a tiny bit more. But again, it's a minor complaint.
The Control Center is always one tap of the PlayStation button away. It provides immediate access to almost everything you need from the system without leaving the game. This includes things like seeing who is online, checking the status of a download, managing your controller, power, and more. These colorful characters are called cards, and they let you interact with games and the system in a variety of ways. First, as we've just resumed, the Control Center is showing...
No offense to them, they didn't need to call it cards. They could have just said it was nothing. Like, it's nothing special. The fact that they named it is, again, one of those unnecessary, like, marketing things where they feel like they have to do something for everything just to justify their job. Just one of those little things that I'm like, they didn't need that.
In this row, and we call them activities. Activities are part of the plan to remove barriers to gameplay. Let's get an example of one way they're used in Sackboy: A Big Adventure. With a tap of the PlayStation button, I'm back to playing the game. Sackboy: A Big Adventure is packed with things to discover, and each level represents one type of activity I can play, many of which I can go back to later to discover more. I tap the PlayStation button to bring up the Control Center again. I can see a number of available activities, both active and suggested by the system. Let's take this first one, A Big Adventure, as an example.
By the way, you know trophy hunters are going to love this.
I'm at 33%. Let's open it up and see more. Here I can see more information, including key objectives I haven't met. And I'm seeing a very important piece of information here. It says about 10 minutes left. This is PlayStation 5's personalized playtime estimate, giving me an idea how long it will take me to complete this activity.
This is cool. Now, it's a very minor thing. It seems like a very innocuous thing, like very, very kind of almost pointless in a way. But if you have, if you're thinking like, okay, I need to leave by this time because I got to go to this like gathering or something, like, or if you got to go to work, if you can look at something and say, hey, on average, it's taking people 10 minutes and you have about 20, 25 minutes before you need to leave, that's pretty awesome because it gives you an idea that, hey, like, okay, I can just finish this thing and feel like I completed something and then I can go. Or in the sense of like, if you're trying to finish one thing here and you're just like, think of like that old kid, like the old like scenario where you as a kid and your parents are calling you down for something and you always would say, oh, 5 more minutes. Now you can literally say, hey, it's going to take me like 10 minutes to finish this. Are we cool? And that way you can kind of give them like a pretty sure idea. That's kind of neat. Again, very, very little feature here, but in the end, it's actually pretty nice that they're giving something like that out there. Very minor detail, but again, it's one of those things that for some people is going to be actually a lot bigger deal than most people would think it would be.
Some activities even let you jump directly to that place in the game. But there's more to see here. For another example, let's open that activity back up.
It's up the speed again. Hopefully it's a little bit.
Looks like I missed an objective to find the monk robes.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Looks like I need a little help. Some in-game activities, like this one, offer official game help. Game help is included as a benefit for active PlayStation Plus members in some PS5 games. In this case, I can open up that objective to get some hints without resorting to a web search or digging through long videos or articles that might contain spoilers. This particular hint is a video, and I can play it here in the card, and I can expand it to get a bigger view without leaving the game. Sometimes it's really useful to be able to see the hint on screen while you play.
This is really cool. Now, as somebody who spends a lot of time playing games and gets stuck and immediately just goes, you know what, I don't want to spend time with this anymore. I'm just going to go to YouTube and watch it myself. And what I'll normally do is I'll have it like on my phone or a tablet or something and kind of periodically like do this over and over again just to kind of keep an eye on it while I'm trying to play at the same time. This allows you to do this without never having to keep your eyes away from the screen you're already playing on. It's, again, such a little thing, but it's so perfect.
Some cards can be put in a picture-in-picture mode, or as shown here, a side-by-side view. Super cool. And if you pin a card, you can access it via the control center at any time. Now let's go find those rascally monk robes. Thanks, Game Help. The team at PlayStation wanted to make it really easy to chat with your friends on the PlayStation 5 console. So let's check out how
I don't think they would agree with that right now with the 8.00 update on PS4.
Join the voice chat that my friend just entered. Now, my friend could have done this on the PlayStation app for mobile devices, from a PS4, or in this case, from a PS5. The DualSense controller features an integrated microphone too, so I could start talking right away. But I always have the ability to hit the mute button on the controller or in the menus. Parties take on an expanded role with PS5, and they now provide persistent spaces to connect with groups that you play with. Here I have a couple of friends chatting away in the party. One of them has started sharing their screen with the group.
I still don't know how many, why most people would actually share their screen more often than not. I'm not sure why a lot of people would ever do that. It's one of those little things, and I'm like, Discord allows me to do it too. It's pretty rare that I need to. Again, this is cool.
Access at any time via the control center too, but let's dismiss it for now.
A side note that me and the VCR podcast guys were thinking about is that this could be really useful too if it's not just related to very specific things like streaming or the hints. If you can use this with a media app, for example, like YouTube, like the YouTube app, or Spotify, you can have that in the background. Or even crazier, my buddy was talking, was like, man, if only I could watch say a sports game while I'm playing games. If for example, because here in Canada we have the Sportsnet app, which is our sports streaming app that PlayStation allows. Can you imagine, I'm a big baseball fan, so I want to catch the next playoff game that's going on right now. But I really, really want to grind out these levels in this game too. So I can't really do both without having two TVs and going like this constantly, periodically looking away from it. Here, I could have, the game over here. And it's only taking up about that much of the screen. It's not taking up a whole lot. Kind of like what my my webcam window is right now. And I could still play my game without really interrupting much. That's really cool. That's a really cool thing if that's true. Now, they don't say in this video if it's related to more than just these couple of things they show off. I would hope that because they've laid the framework out for these other things, that it would just be easy enough to do with everything else. I would hope. If it isn't, that's a missed opportunity, and they need to do that as quick as possible, because that is a really huge feature that would make a huge difference for a lot of people. To be able to watch a YouTube video and play something at the same time on your same screen would be really, really cool. So I really hope that they do that with everything else aside from just people sharing their screen or the hint system that they have now.
Okay, let's review. So far, we've seen how activities on PS5 will make it easier and faster to hop back into PS5 games, and how you can get in-game help and chat with your friends. So that leaves online multiplayer gaming. Let's check it out. I see that some of my friends are online, so it's time to say goodbye to Sackboy for now and spin up a match of Destruction All-Stars. One of my friends in the party has already started a match, and we can join them from this card in Control Center. And there we go. Destruction All-Stars now quickly starts thanks to PS5's ultra-high-speed SSD. Okay, I think we've got enough people.
That transition, before they sped it up, to the point between the game being turned off, switching was about 5 seconds.
And just like that, we're in.
That's pretty fast.
Full match today, but I do think we have time to take a quick photo. To do that, I'll just tap the Create button on the DualSense controller. PS5 is always capturing recent gameplay, but when you compose a shot, even using in-game photo mode, you can capture a high-quality screenshot here. This optimizes capturing the moment, letting you review and choose to share later on. I should mention, screenshots and video can be captured at up to 4K on the PS5 console. Okay, so far we've shown off how to jump into activities, how to chat with your friends, get into groups together to play, capturing gameplay, all of that while in-game. But what if I want to play a different game? Welcome to the...
This is the key here. So anybody who knows the PlayStation 4 menu knows that it was from here to about here, takes up the entire center of the screen. What this does is it does exactly what the menu is already supposed to be, but is a lot less... It's taking up a lot less space, and it really opens the ability to make some really vibrant backgrounds to really draw your eyes into what you're doing. Now, I don't know if they'll fill up more like if you maybe scroll down, because right now on PlayStation, for example, if you scroll down, it shows things like trophies that you might have or people playing it or like related videos to stuff. So there might be more to it than just this. But if it isn't, this is great because this is a lot more beautiful. And if you're going on a big 4K TV, this is going to look fantastic. The other thing, too, is that, I mean, it's covered up because right now I got the video in pause, but there's a games and a media screen, which means everything is separated still, which is worrisome because, as any PlayStation user knows, the media or the app screen is a very, very laggy piece of shit still. So hopefully that's fixed. But regardless, the fact that so much of the screen isn't taken up is really good. Now, they may have the option to like make it bigger because maybe some people need it for like smaller screens. That could be possible. I would assume it's possible. I figured they would make that kind of adjustment because if you're doing this on like a really small monitor and you're like in a bit far away, then yeah, it might be a little bit hard to see everything. So I imagine they probably would have an option to make them bigger. But either way, like I'm going to use it exactly like this because I hate the fact that right now, especially because a lot of wallpapers on PlayStation 4 are useless because too much is covered up. Like anything out there that's remotely good is always like almost all of it's covered. The one good one really was the one that came out for the Final Fantasy VII Remake with Tifa because Tifa's actually superimposed over stuff. So it actually worked out nicely. It kind of made it almost look 3D-ish. But most wallpapers is literally just a still image and all the apps cover it, and it doesn't make it look good at all. So more often than not, I just use the base color because it was just better that way. So this actually makes it a lot more visually attractive, which is a major plus for me because I'm all about that visual detail.
The PlayStation 5 home screen. This is where you'll land when you start up from a powered off state and where you'll go when you want to choose a new game to play or download. The layout of this space is designed to present games and game content beautifully on a 4K display, with simple and super fast access to what you need. And in case you're wondering, media-related apps will have their own space like this one, but today we're focused on gaming. Each game has its own hub completely integrated, so all you need to do is scroll down to see activities you can jump right into.
Now, I wonder if they would actually have still like the group thing that you can do where you can group all your games together, kind of like a library. I hope that's still a thing.
Let's move one spot to the left and check out Explore, which brings together all your games. We saw a view of this from the control center earlier, and another view will also be in the new PlayStation app for mobile devices.
Basically a news screen.
Keeps you in the loop with official stories from PlayStation and
no big deal.
Games you're following, including trending media from the community. We'll be testing and learning about this feature in the US at launch, so not everyone will have this on day one, but it gives you a good idea of the direction. And this is PlayStation Store for PS5. It's completely integrated into the system. It's not a standalone app anymore. Browsing for new games to play will be easier thanks to the speed of PS5 and a more personalized store experience. And here, you'll be able to browse the latest games and deals. You'll find PS5 games and many backward-compatible PS4 games, too. I'm sad to say, but we are almost out of time. So let's pull up Control Center.
Isn't it great that they spend some of the video, though, talking about the things that you want to know more about and don't? Like, oh, here's a media screen, but we're not showing that just yet. Oh, here's the store, but we're not showing you the store just yet because all of us are like, okay, but can you wish list? Can you wish list? Can you wish list? Can you gift? But most importantly, can you wish list? One of those things where it's like, guys, like, this console's out in a month. Like, just tell us the information. Holy shit. Stop holding this shit back.
One more time with a tap of the PlayStation button. On our way out, why don't we quickly share that photo we took in Destruction All-Stars? We can find recently captured media in this handy card in Control Center. From here, we can do some quick edits, but I think I'm ready to share it right now. On PlayStation 5, I have the option to share videos and images to supported external services, or I can send them.
And again, another opportunity to tell just a couple of quick things. And they don't do it. So we still don't know about the create and or the editing engine that they have in this, so you can edit like your videos or your images and stuff. And again, they don't mention any other platforms. We just see the same platform we've always used on PS4, which is Twitter. So we don't know if Instagram's still available or anything else. Like we don't know still. This is such a little thing in the grand scheme of things, but it's something that's been pissing me off since the first announcement of the PS5. Is like they keep withholding information. And this is the point now where I think it's really stupid that they continue to do that. Like I said, it's a month away. You can't just keep withholding information like this. Just give us all the information and get us hyped about it. Periodically showing it a little bit here and there is not doing it anymore because we've been asking for this stuff for like almost 6 months. So it's just one of those things where this entire stream has just been like, okay, a lot of cool things, but why the hell did you just gloss over this thing that's really important to all of us?
them directly to one of my parties. Remember, parties are bigger than just voice chat now, so I'll select one of my favorite parties here.
So basically they're saying that parties are like Facebook groups now, which I love and hate at the same time, but I'll get into that once this video is over.
In a number of languages, so you no longer have to type messages with the keyboard.
I appreciate that too, because the controller's going to have the built-in mic and I can just say my message, which is nice.
Where I capture this media, and the game's developer thinks that activity might contain spoilers, they'll receive a warning before they view it. Well,
I might have talked over that, but it's very nice too that if you do post something that might be spoilerish, and again, this is up to the developers to kind of institute, but if you put something in a party chat that might have spoilers, like a death in a game, something like that, they would actually put a cover over it that just in case nobody wants to be spoiled on this, they won't. And I think that's very nice because that can also mean that people can't just spam spoiler stuff in the group chat.
Well, that's it for our demo. There are many more exciting features we couldn't get to today.
And that's it. So the most important thing, honestly, here is that it looks beautiful. Like, visually, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and I'm very happy with what I'm seeing here. The problem is it just does the same thing that PlayStation has been doing for so long, which is just constantly giving you a little and then nothing else. And it's to that point where, again, like I said before on the podcast several times, and I'll say it here, I'm so tired of Sony right now withholding so much information still. And the closer and closer to launch we get is getting more and more infuriating. Because by now we should have known about the Create tool. The fact that we don't is insane. Like, it should be such an important part of this console, and we don't know anything about it. We don't know about the stores because there's got to be added features. It can't just be the store. There has to be wish listing and gifting. There's no way you can put out this new console in 2020 and not have these features. So why can't they just say that? Same deal with the media center. Like, why can't they say that as well? It just goes down to all these things where it's like, guys, how is it so hard to just say it? Why do you have to just keep like putting in little teases? Your console is out in a month. There's no point in hiding information anymore. Some people have already gotten their hands on it, and there's embargoes that are going away. Like, Xbox just got to lifted the embargo on what the running temperature is in that console. There's all these little things that just keep getting hidden. This wouldn't have happened as well as with COVID taking E3 away. All of these things would have been shown by now. So again, this is just a frustration of this specific year where all they're doing is withholding information. But realistically, like, I'm happy with what I saw. It's just little things still chipping away at me because it's been for like 6 months now. But that's not the only thing. Let's do one more. Actually, you know what? No, let's do the annoying thing first. And then we'll finish off with the happy thing so I can at least be all smiles before I go into the really heavy stuff in a moment here. So, as I mentioned earlier, they were talking about, parties are different now. Well, parties right now aren't really functional on PS4 because the new update, the 8.00 update, has been nothing short of a catastrophe. Friends lists are breaking. Parties are being a lot more difficult to create. It seems like it's less of a just sudden thing and more of something you have to develop with like a certain group. Like, you have to actually set all this shit up. It seems a little bit over the top, like there's too many steps in this, so they could have they took away something that was pretty simple and kind of ruined it, and that's a little bit frustrating. But people, while are still being a little bit upset about that stuff, there are a lot of people that are being upset about something else, and that being that, party chat will now be recorded. Now, I say recorded because since 2013, they actually have been, but it wasn't really publicly addressed. This is the first time that Sony has openly said to all their users that this is what's going on. Now, the reason that they're saying it now is because in the new update, and this is setting it up for PS5, is that you're going to be able to report violations of the terms of service in party chats. So, for example, if somebody is being really racist to you or another person in the party, you can report that. You can clip out that bit, send it over, and it's reported. And of course, a lot of people are freaking out. Now, there are people that are just doing the whole thing of conspiracy and, they're listening to us kind of stuff, which is its own set of problems. But then there's the people that are outraged because, again, they think that, I can't curse or I'll get reported. I think that if it gets reported, I would imagine that somebody or at least a bot would listen in and see what sounds there are. If you could actually get a single report for just saying fuck in the party, and I don't mean like saying how you're gonna fuck, like if there's a girl in your chat and you're gonna talk about how you're gonna fuck her constantly, that might be different. The context is key here. But if literally just saying the word fuck could get you like a suspension or a ban, then we have a whole different conversation here. But I don't believe that's what's going on. What I believe is actually going on is simply if you're being a really hateful piece of shit, you're going to get reported. Now, at the same time, let's also keep in mind that how many times do we report people in games for hacking, for abuse like that, and rarely nothing happens. So I would kind of suspect that if you were going to get reported, a single report, unless somebody is actually listening to every single report, I think a lot of them are going to go through the cracks for a little bit. I think it's more if like several people in the same instance do that. So like if within an hour of each other, about 3 or 4 different people in a party like report that person, I think that's a different story. But if it's just one person, I think there's probably a chance that like a lot of things, unfortunately, that it might fall through the cracks because a single report could always just be a false flag, right? Because, I mean, let's be honest, with any reporting tool, people are going to abuse that system. It's just an inevitability. However, let's just talk about the one simple thing. And honestly, if you guys really think that it's just for cursing, if you think that it's going to go that far, again, we're hiding the fact here that this is meant specifically to deal with very specific individuals that no one should be allowing on a platform, especially one that is, it may in your eyes be a public platform, but it's still under PlayStation's banner and they have every right to lay out a terms of service that describes exactly who they want on their platform. And if somebody isn't like those people that they want on that platform and breaks the rules that they set on it, then they are well within their right to make the tools necessary to have people able to flag these people to get removed and for that company to review those flags and see if it is indeed what needs to be done. So again, if you think that just because you're going around saying motherfucker or asshole or fuck you, I don't think you're really looking in the right direction. The reality is that this tool is for people who bully and harass and do some very hateful shit that should not be allowed on that platform. Now keep in mind, let's just assume the worst case scenario. Let's assume that you, I'm not talking, okay, you know what? No, let's just say a person, I'm not going to do the you thing because I don't want people to assume that I actually mean you. So let's say there's a person who's extremely racist. Like we're talking like white nationalist level racist. If that person is in a party with 4 other white nationalists, none of them are going to report. So don't worry about it. If you got your own cliques where you're spewing your hateful shit, you got nothing to worry about. But if you're in a random party with people you may not know, or people that you certainly know would take offense to these things, then you need to expect that they're going to use those tools against that person. So, at the end of the day, this is going to be something that is going to be used and will probably be abused in some ways. I can't deny that because, again, how many times have we learned that the internet loves to abuse things? It's just an inevitability. But the reality is this tool is not meant to do anything more than to protect people who are being harassed on the service. And it's being done for the company to try and remove people that they do not want to be on that platform. In the same vein that any other site like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. does the exact same thing. And if you think that shouldn't be allowed, I'm sorry to tell you, but then you are part of the problem. So lastly, let's just have some fun. Let's just go and have fun with the one amazing thing that's going to make us feel just a little better.
Skanky said the app's blowing up. City definitely needs a Spider-Man. Should patrol for
Anybody who's seen this video already knows exactly what's coming. I have watched this video way too many times already. Why is the quality so bad here? It's supposed to be 1080. Come on, man.
Let's go to a power station. There's my way in.
Again, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Cool gameplay. I'm down. Oh shit. That looks cool, but none of this matters. Who gives a shit about some cool combat right now? Because that's not the story here. You know what the real story is? Hello, Spider Cat. Spider Cat. AKA, I swear to God, if this isn't something I can do constantly in the game, I'm going to be very upset.
Restored, bank heist stopped, Spider-Man the cat saved.
All in a day's great work. Maybe we can get leads on who we're dealing with. Call you soon.
Hey, Teo, got a surprise for you.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Yeah.
Spider-Man!
The cat's named Spider-Man.
Did you have an adventure?
How can you not smile at that?
Oh, you almost gave that
And it's an orange cat, too. It's everything I could ever want.
did. Oh.
Now I need an orange cat and I need to name him Spider-Man. It's like my goal in life now.
Good work, other Spider-Man. Thanks.
Yeah. Of course.
Now, there's a little weird amount of drama here, so there's probably something that we don't know yet. But the most important thing is now here. He's got a mask.
Stop some crimes.
Oh my god. Ah! So that was fucking cool. And I can't wait to play that. I cannot wait. That's going to be amazing. It's probably an outfit. But I mean, I'll be completely honest. I played through almost the entirety of the first Spider-Man game with the Iron Spider suit. It was really weird for me to change costumes. If they give me that costume early in the game, and I am never going to use any other outfit. I don't care. I don't care how cool everything else is. It's not gonna matter because Spider-Cat is the shit. And it's no surprise that that thing has gotten as many views as it has so quick because everybody is freaking the hell out about that thing. So yeah, that is something fun that we go through here. And oh my god, I just couldn't believe it when I saw that trailer. I'm like, this is amazing. This is going to be something that just, it's so easy just to make a video of. I would probably finish because I'll probably play this game solo. I don't think I'll stream this because there are certain games that I really want to enjoy on my own, and I think this would be one of them. But I would not hesitate to play through it again down the road, specifically if there was like a new game plus and this outfit was already unlocked, and just play the entire game with the cat. I'm so down for that shit. Or even just to go around and just have fun for like an hour on stream and just go nuts just beating the shit out of people with the cat. I don't care. Holy shit, that sounds like a good ass time. So with that being said, it's time for some more serious shit. So, way back when I was really starting to get into a YouTube kick again, this like early on, I was just doing like really like simple gameplay stuff, really didn't do too much, didn't take it too seriously. The moment that I really started taking a serious look into YouTube, of my own dismay and of things that I'm trying to correct as time has gone on, although I still feel differently about some things and others, was Gamergate. You know, and anybody who is aware of Gamergate understands exactly what that entails. And I was on the side of journalistic integrity. And it never really went beyond that. I know a lot of people went into the women-hating route. There are people out there that I specifically didn't like that were part of the Gamergate crowd that was for diversity and inclusion and that kind of stuff, which I've always been for. That part of me never changed, even at my worst case scenario, because I used to be listening to a lot of very right-wing people like your Ben Shapiro's or Steven Crowder's. I fell into that trap. And even then, I never thought that diversity shouldn't be a thing. My outlook for a long time was literally just like, I don't think we should be forcing it. We should be letting it just do it on its own time, because it was. I truly do believe that as time has gone on, we have been including more and more. Now, back then, I thought that we shouldn't be trying really hard to just kind of really shoehorn that in there. The difference that I have now compared to then is that I do feel like we need to be pushing, but it doesn't need to be something that's like we have to like go out there and force people to accept it. I think what we should be doing is just being very open and being very like if somebody wants to be a part of something, you just immediately go, sure, you're in. Instead of being like, we have to put this person in because she is this or because this person's like a part of the LGBT. It shouldn't just be, we have to put this person in. It should be, if they want a part in, you open the door for them. That's what I think. It shouldn't be you push them through the door. No, it should be you open the door, and if they want to step through, they step through. That's my different thing now. One of the people, though, as I mentioned earlier, that I was very, very negative towards, and I've mentioned it several times, both in the podcast and I believe here, I'm not sure if on the stream I have before, was Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency. And to this day, I'm still not 100% sure if I do have any changes towards how I feel about her. Now, that being said, it's not her directly. Feminist Frequency is up in the airwaves again, because normally at E3 every year, they would have their list of games that were shown and would show, okay, this is how many of these games featured a female, a male, like and like multiple choices and stuff like that. And every year they would always say the same thing. Look how few games feature women. And the reality is that it was not the small percentage they would say, because they were never specifically saying it was just specifically one gendered character and this was the gender. The reality is that more than half of all games were allowing you to play as a woman. It's just most of them were allowing you to choose between male or female. Now, a lot more games at the time seemed to push that if it was going to be one gender, it was going to be more male. And I do agree that there should be games that feature more female-only characters. However, I don't feel like it's something that is a big deal if it doesn't, because the reality is that most games now, like I said, over half, give you the option. So you can put yourself in that game and associate with those characters. Now, this year, they decided to still do that. And this year was a much better improvement. And immediately, this is the kind of stuff that gets my attention. I said this in the one video I think is still left on my channel where I talk about one of our videos, where it's they're making progress, but it's not good enough. This is a similar thing. The title of this article is being more video games featured women this year. Will it last? Why does it have to immediately go to, but is this just a fluke? Why can't it just be more video games featured women this year, and that's it? Or just say like finally, or amazing, like anything like that. It's always like, we finally are getting what we want, but it might be taken away from us at any moment. It's like they can't help themselves, but put themselves in that scenario where they have to leave the door open for something bad to happen. And it's the same thing with the other side of the debate. Every time that they get their way and say like, oh, this thing has this. Like they could say, oh, this game has this sexual content to it, but it might get taken away from us at any moment. It's always like that. And it drives me crazy. We can't just enjoy something for what it is right now. So this article already kind of got my attention, but let's go further into it and actually talks about the article itself. I'm going to skip some of it to get to the point where they actually talk about this. So last year, our 5th year of collecting data from E3, we concluded that for all the increased awareness and conversation about representations of women in games that had occurred over the past decade, in terms of the raw numbers, female representation was just not getting any better, with only a paltry 5% of games featured as last year's event, specifically focusing on female characters. That's good, like the sentence structure. The problem is what comes next. Now here's the good news. Statistically, this year represents a significant improvement, with about 18% of games shown featuring female characters. In fact, this represents a new high, almost doubling the previous, in brackets, dismal record of 9% from 2014, our first year collecting the data. Now here's the problem. They just said that it was 5% of gamers last year specifically focusing on female characters. Now here's the issue. The rest of this paragraph does not clarify that in the same way. It just says 18% of games shown featuring female characters. The other side that they are opposed to, this being the Feminist Frequency writing this article, because I think it's, we have Feminist Frequency. So whoever wrote this article, which I think it's listed here, Carolyn, oh, there we go. Anita Sarkeesian and Carolyn penned it together. I don't know if Carolyn's part of Feminist Frequency. I would imagine because they say we here that would be the case. But when they write this part, they should know better by now that somebody will clip this part of the paragraph out. People who hate Feminist Frequency. I don't hate, I just don't I don't like the way that they go about their messaging a lot. I still agree with diversity and inclusion. That part will never escape me and will never go away. I don't like the way that they kind of go about their business sometimes. So again, specifically, they left a really easy open door here for the anti-SJW community, or specifically the sexist community, that really dangerous community out there that we know exists, that send a lot of threats to women, that are very harassing to women. This gives them a little bit more ammunition because they can take this part of the paragraph out, completely superimpose it as its own thing, and say, see, they only believe that 18% of all games featured women, and ignore this graph here that they put that shows 54% on top of that gave you multiple options, which means a total of 72% of games allow you the ability to play as a female character. And if you also include another 3% on top of that, you could say that 3/4 of all games allow you to play either as a woman or as someone who is non-binary or trans. So specifically, 23% of all games allow you to play as just men. The other 77% do not. That should be a very positive thing. Instead, the way that this is written gives those people who are not going to take this with any amount of clarity and just skim the article are going to find that one thing that makes them mad, and they gave it to them. Quite easily, in fact. So that was my first problem. And again, it's like, it's really easy to just say 18% of games now feature specifically a female as the main protagonist, while on top of that, 54% also give players the option to choose their gender, thus meaning that 72% of games allow us the opportunity to play as a female in said game. If they had done that in this paragraph, this looks amazing. Because again, 72% of games right now can allow you to play as a female. If you are a woman in gaming right now, like a female gamer, or even a woman in the industry, that is a huge statistic. Considering the best one before that, so let's do the math actually. So in 2015, it was 9% plus 46, so that's what, 55? 2016 would have been 51, so it went down. 2017 went up to 59. 2018 went to 58. So it was roughly between 50 and 60% for a 4-year span. And then last year, we suddenly went from under 60% all those 4 years to over 70%. We hit 71, and this year we're now at 72. That's really good. That's a huge improvement. If you think of the worst possible number, which is 51% here in 2016, in just 4 years, we upped that by almost 20%. Actually, wait, 51 to 72. We did. We went over 20%. That's incredible in such a low amount of time. And in fact, that's probably about the sweet spot. You can maybe try to hit it up to maybe 80% at most. Any more than that, and I think you still have to open the door for the possibility of games that are specifically one character and one gender. I think, honestly, the best case scenario I would like to see would be 20 and 20 for each female and male, and then the rest be a choice. I would love it to be somewhere around the 30 to 40% of games are specifically one character, and everything else allows you the ability to choose. That's a great like balance. So all in all, I'm not criticizing what they are doing, like what they're trying to say here. Specifically, I'm criticizing the way that it's written because, again, you're opening that door, which is a huge mistake. Anyways, completing this article here. This year also marks the narrowest divide between games featuring defined female protagonists and games featuring defined male protagonists we've seen. So again, they go right back into it here. But how many guys do you think are going to see this thing, and I'm talking guys that oppose this, and are going to see this graph and stop? Because now they have everything they need. They don't need to go any further. They're done. If you had just done, instead of this specific part of the art of the paragraph, put that in on top of it, they have nothing. They have nothing. They have nothing to give. But you gave them that option. Anyways, I'll just start from the top again. This year also marks the narrowest divide between games featuring defined female protagonists and games featuring defined male protagonists that we've yet seen, with games starring male characters making up 23% of this year's total, or just 5% more games overall. In previous years, there have always been at least 3 times as many games centering men as there were centering women, so the fact that this year both values are at least the same, at least in the same ballpark, is definitely a welcome development. Again, the verbiage is definitely a welcome development. It's not a development. It's happened. Again, stop making it sound like it's a welcome development. Makes it seem like, well, it's okay. No. This is amazing. You should be praising this and not anything else. Stop playing the negative thing like it could change. If it changes, then criticize it. But the fact that is, look at this, within 5%. Within 5%. That is a great gap. Compared to 9 to 32, 2 to 41? That's amazing. We went from that to this. Why are you complaining? Why are you leaving the door open that, oh, it's probably going to get changed though? Don't do that. Celebrate this. Enjoy it for what it is, because who knows, if you are right and it gets taken away, then that's when you focus on it. But when you do this, you leave that door open that you just sounds like you're bitter still. I hate that. I hate that because it makes it seem like you don't value that change at all. And again, it continues. However, while we should perhaps be cautiously optimistic about these numbers, we also shouldn't break out the champagne just yet. You break out the champagne. You fucking break it out. Because if it fails, if it goes back down, well then guess what? It'll go back up eventually if you fight it again, and now you get a second bottle of champagne to open. Just enjoy it. It will naturally require another year or two before we can begin to determine if the shift reflects actual change that are taking place or if 2020 is a one-off statistical anomaly that will quickly see a return to the status quo. Again, why do we have to just immediately imply that it could just be a fluke? Don't do that. Don't do that. You're just downplaying the amazing progress that we made. That's what makes people think that there's no point in making progress, because you're not going to be happy about it. That's what a lot of people, myself, used to be this way. I used to get so upset. And you'll see that in the video that I have way back in the day where I talk about one of her videos where I say, why can't you just be happy? And I hate people for that. Just be happy about it. But they can't. Reasons to question whether or not this shift represents widespread change include the fact that more than 1/3 of the games centering female characters came from just one event, Sony's June 11th presentation dubbed The Future of Gaming, the first ever event focused on the games of Sony's next generation console, the PS5. We'd like to hope that this means that Sony recognizes that a significant percentage of potential PS buyers are women, and that they featured those games as a part of a conscious ongoing effort to win over those players. Don't disagree with that. I do think that because, again, we are consistently getting better and better at being more inclusive for women and non-binary and trans people for that matter, that, yeah, you do want to kind of show a little more things in that direction because you want them to think that it isn't just an all-male console and, you should just deal with it. No, it should be like, hey, we're making this for you too, so we aren't forgetting about you. Makes perfect sense. Don't disagree with that. A new console generation could bring about significant change, and Sony's influence within the games industry is vast. The PS4 has sold more than twice as many units over its lifetime as Microsoft's competing Xbox One, so if this does reflect a larger strategy on the part of the console maker, the repercussions in years to come could be very significant indeed. Our hope is that both Sony and Microsoft make more deliberate efforts within their upcoming next-gen consoles to dismantle the false but enduring notion that gaming as a cultural domain is primarily for boys and men. I used to hate that sentence. I don't disagree with it now. I've kind of opened up to the fact that, yeah, this is a very male-dominated hobby still to this day. Why? Because, again, to this very day, I can count on one hand how many friends that I have consistently talked to in gaming. And I think the number is 3. So when it comes to women, it's still very rare that I talk to them consistently while I'm playing video games. So yeah, I can kind of figure that over the 20 years that I've gamed, the fact that I have had 3 consistent friends that are female that are related to my gaming hobby, yeah, that gives me a pretty good indication that it might actually be a male-dominated field still to this day. So I'm not going to disagree with that. Such a shift would require not just a change in the content of games, but also in who holds positions of leadership and creative decision-making within game studios. Historically, these have been overwhelmingly male-dominated, a problem with repercussions far beyond just matters of representation, though the past few years have brought about the beginnings of a much-needed reckoning with all these imbalances of power and their consequences. While it's impossible to discern anything concrete about whether or not more women are being hired at big studios, and whether their cultures are undergoing any real change, from video presentations like these, we can take note of who gets to represent these companies on camera, and in regard this year's events casts a dim outlook and illuminate an area still needing considerable growth. Overall, only 23% of on-camera presenters in these showcases were women, and in each presentation, women were outnumbered by men by at least 2 to 1, and sometimes much worse than that. We'll note changes happening when we start seeing more women, particularly as creative directors of studios or project leads of major titles showing up in these videos. So there's the graph there. I don't know if this specific number is bad or not. This is the one thing that I don't actually have an answer either way on, because it could also be a thing that maybe just some women are more uncomfortable with public speaking. I have no idea to discern whether or not that it's just because male or men are dominating. It's very possible that it might not be the case. In fact, the worrying part too, and this is again what I talked about, we don't want to push people through the door, is that this number may actually be larger than it actually would be right now, but people are being forced, and I mean forced as in women are being forced to speak because they want to make it seem like their company is inclusive. My worry is that 23% is actually less because some women are being pushed to be the presenters because they want to make it seem like they care. So in reality, it might actually be less, but let's just assume that it's 77 to 23%. If that's the case, again, I don't actually know if that is bad or not. Because the reality is a lot of times when you do presenters, more often than not, they end up being, it isn't just like the company head. Sometimes it's like one of the programmers or like the lead developer or something like that. Sometimes it's positions that are still a male, I wouldn't say dominated, but it's still like men are more often not geared to that position. Because in the same vein, you could say, just as an example, like there are more women in education or nurses, for example. So it would make sense that if there are more women in those fields than men, that women would more likely be geared to be those presenters for that specific subject. So I don't know if this specific statistic needs to be like split 50-50, because I don't know if you literally let things go as open and diverse as possible, if there were literally no restrictions on, like, if we're talking things like affirmative action, if people aren't feeling like they're being forced to go into a specific field or they're forced to hire specific people, I don't know if the gaming industry would suddenly be a 50-50 split. For all we know, if we literally just left everything alone, if we were as open and inclusive as we possibly could be, it might still be 75-25 men to women. We don't know. So I get why they're saying what they're saying here, where they're saying, hey, maybe things would get sped up if we had more women in these roles. I don't disagree with that logic. However, the only question I would ask is a diverse split, as in an equal split, something possible without it being forced? That's my question. And I don't know if forcing it makes the issue better. I don't know if that actually fixes the problem or just creates new ones. So that's my only take there. This is the part where they kind of go after me a little bit, and a lot of people like me. Each year when we present this data, some people invariably point to the fact that games which allow players a choice between a male and female character, or games in which you control an ensemble of characters made up of people of different genders, make up the biggest percentage of all, 55% this year, and wonder why that isn't on its own enough to satisfy us. The answer is quite simple. Of course, we welcome games that allow players the option to create and customize their own characters, but this is categorically different from games that feature defined specific characters. Each person who plays Horizon Zero Dawn, or for instance, or The Last of Us Part 2, must step into the shoes of a defined female character and experience the game's effort to get them to identify with and relate to that character. In an industry whose output was for decades dominated by male heroes, what we most want to see is a shift towards at least an equal number of games that require players to take on the role of humanized female characters. So two things. One, you basically have that now. Almost an even split between defined characters, where it's one specific. So your argument here is now invalid. Quite frankly. Because if you think a 5% split is a big split, it really isn't. Compared to 2 to 41, 7 to 26, 8 to 24, 5 to 21, no, those are big splits. This is not. So right now, this specific year, you have exactly what you want. So when people point that out because, again, it goes back to what I said earlier, where they have that one line where you can isolate it and say that 18% of games showed female characters. People can take that out of context. Where the reality is, like I said, it's 72% give you the ability to do so. And again, like I said, that's big. So the second point is I don't like that they say, you know, you have to have a defined female character for people to be able to identify and relate to that character. There is a game out there called The Fucking Sims, where you can create your own character, create a legion of characters, and there are endless people that play those games that identify and relate and put themselves into various characters in that world that they chose themselves. Same with games like Final Fantasy games, for example, or any JRPG has several characters in them, and people will gravitate to certain characters because, again, they identify with and relate to that character. So the argument that it has to be a single charactered game is preposterous. That's not true. That's an absolute flat out lie. You don't need that. Yes, Horizon Zero Dawn and Last of Us Part 2 are great for that. Because, again, it is specifically that. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favorite games ever now. Aloy is one of my favorite female characters, if not my favorite female character in all of gaming. And again, just because it works with her doesn't mean it's the only situation that can apply. How many of us have played games like Saints Row? And whatever we created, we had so much fun going nuts with and feeling like by the end of it we could relate to some things with that character and we viewed ourselves as that character. It isn't something that's necessarily defined by a one-person charactered game. It's not always that. So for them to say this tells me that, again, and I've said this before about Anita, I'm not convinced to this day that Anita actually is even a casual, I think at best she might be a casual gamer, but really isn't as in-depth as she seems to claim she is. Now, again, I'm going just on my own perceptions of her, so I may be wrong. But the language that she constantly uses and the language the Feminist Frequency as a whole constantly uses makes me wonder if these aren't people that play games as much as somebody like I do, as somebody like a lot of hardcore gamers, and it doesn't necessarily just mean guys. I don't know if they take gaming the same way that we do. I think they may be looking at it from a much different perspective, from a much more minor audience. Now, I'm not saying their views don't matter. What I'm saying is if they want the industry to change specifically to their views as a whole, I think that's an issue because all of a sudden it then gets taken out of the hands of a much bigger majority. Now, if that majority was completely hateful, I would say a different story, but I don't believe that the vast majority of gamers are the hateful people that would send people like Anita bomb threats, death threats, all that shit, you know? That's a different story. But in this case, whatever they advocate for, I think is one step too far. I think what they honestly fight for in the end is still very admirable and is something that I hope that we get to. But I think at the same time, there are certain things that they say that I go, whoa, let's kind of hold it back a little bit here. Pull back just a tiny bit. Anyways, let's finish off this thing. While we believe that increased and improved female representations in games is vitally important, it's also necessary to note that it's just one of many things to consider as we look for games to tell stories that represent and humanize a far broader spectrum of humanity than games once did. Better representations around race, sexuality, and gender identity are also crucial, and a great deal of work remains to be done in those areas as well. I agree. I played again, and they feature it here. Tell Me Why is a fantastic game when it comes to dealing with transgender, non-binary, those kinds of characters, or I guess those kinds of people. Those work really well. The more games like that I would love, because again, didn't take me out of it to be playing as a trans character the entire time. It didn't do anything to change my opinion of anything. I didn't go, oh, I can't associate with this. It's just another human being, folks. It's not that hard to figure out. It's the same thing with race. It's the same thing with gender. It's the same thing with sexuality. They're all human beings. They all share a same conscience like we do. You don't have to suddenly go, well, that person's black. I can never understand what they go through. That person's a woman. I can never understand what they go through. That person's trans. I can never understand. No, it's really not that hard to understand human emotion. It's pretty basic, guys. It's worth noting that this year's games, Last of Us Part 2 and Tell Me Why, both feature trans characters, and in recent years, non-binary characters have also appeared in games from time to time. Naturally, this is a trend that we hope to see become far more common, and it's something we will be keeping our eye on in the years to come. Is there anything else? No, not really. So all in all, For as much as I like about this article, there's enough that I still criticize. Not because I disagree fundamentally with, like, I'm not going in here the way that I would have probably done 5 years ago, where I said, fuck these people, they don't know what they're talking about. Now I'm just like, okay, it's like just from the top again. You left a really significant open door for people to criticize. You really underplayed. Like, basically, there's three. Okay, you know what? There's 3 points really in this entire article that I have to go at. One, you left a lot of open doors for the anti-SJW community, and specifically the very hateful and harassing version of that community, to really go out there and take shots at you again because you gave them the fodder, because you didn't proofread your stuff and leave nothing to them. You left them plenty to work with and plenty to isolate. Secondly, you made the distinction that there needs to be a lot more presenters and a lot more people within the industry. And like I said earlier, I don't know if that is necessarily the correct method, because again, if they're looking for a 50-50 split, that may end up being something they'd have to force, which never fixes the problem. If you let it go naturally, it may stop at 30-70, may stop at 35-7 or 35-65, may stop at 55-45 women to men. I don't know, but the idea that it has to be better, I don't necessarily agree that that's the case. Now, if it was 5% to 95, I think we have a different story. But like I said, 23 to 77 is not as significant a gap as you would think. Because again, we don't actually know how it's geared to in the industry, because we don't know how much is open door and how much is closed. So, and again, like I said, we don't even know how many of these women out of that 23% were forced into that role because they wanted to make it seem like the company was diverse and inclusive. So it's really hard to really know if that number is true and if it's the right number or not, and if it needs to get better, or if it's maybe too high for what it actually represents and what it will represent in the end if we were really as open and as inclusive as we can possibly be. So that part I didn't quite appreciate, but again, I'm not nearly as upset about it. The last thing, and the most important thing, is really just, again, the idea that they can't just accept that a good year happened and celebrate it. Like I said, the title literally could have just talked about how amazing that part is, but it had to go right back into, but this might change and we might get fucked again. I am not what I consider to be a feminist. I support women's rights, I support LGBT rights, all that jazz, but I don't go to the feminist thing because that word has been dirtied for so long, both by people who actually associate themselves with the branding of feminism and on the other side from years of criticism against them. So I don't like calling myself a feminist, even though that I probably support 99% of the things that a feminist would want. But it's this specific kind of feminism that I can never get behind. The kind that just can't accept that when something good happens, they just celebrate it and leave it at that. Instead, it's well, this is good, but one of two things. Either it's good, but we have more work to do, or this is good, but it might be a fluke. And they might come back and take it away from us. I'm going to say this one more time. We had a fantastic year. Don't piss that goodwill away. Don't screw it up. Because a change like this can be easily taken away, like you say. But it's not going to be because men are fighting back. It's going to be because people feel like you aren't grateful for it. And people feel like you don't care that we made this progress. I say it so many times when I'm talking about, very specific political issues. We are always getting better. We are better than we were 50 years ago. We are better than we were 20 years ago. We are better than we were 10 years ago. Hell, we're better than what we were 5 years ago. And if you can't accept that, well, there's a problem. And if you immediately say, but we have more work to do, again, no shit. There's always work to do. But if you can't go, if I say things are better than they've ever been, and you immediately go, we've got work to do, but don't start that by saying, yes, and it's amazing that we are where we are, then there's a problem. Because it makes it seem like you don't care about the progress that we've made. It seems like you don't care about the fight that we've done. And that is why these movements that are against you in every way continue to exist and continue to thrive, because when progress happens, you don't go, okay, thank you. This is what we wanted to see. Now let's work on the next thing. You go, all right, what's next? You ignore the progress. And stuff like this article, makes me believe the same thing. That Anita Sarkeesian either straight up just doesn't care about this issue and just wants to be the one who controls stuff, or quite frankly, is just very ungrateful and only cares about the money that keeps getting put into her bank account. Because that company makes non-profit company has way too much money for what it's actually supposed to be. A non-profit should not be as rich as it is. But regardless, to encapsulate everything, 2020 has been, despite all the negativity that we have had this entire year, a breakthrough year for diversity and inclusivity in the gaming industry as a whole. And we should celebrate that. And when people like Anita and the Feminist Frequency group as a whole have to immediately resort to, but there's either more work to be done, or but this could be taken away from us, and it could be a fluke. That's the kind of shit that makes it a fluke. And if next year is a massive downtrend, it's not because men fought back. It's because people like you, Anita, screwed it up for the rest of us because you just couldn't accept progress and be happy about it. That's the reality. One more thing, and then we're probably going to be done. This already is over an hour, so much for me thinking it would only be one. I should know better. Every time I say it's going to be a shorter show, it never is. But, c'est la vie. Oops, I deleted the wrong... Oh god, I deleted the wrong thing. I'm in trouble. Oh no, I found it. Okay, we're good. We're good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Okay. By the way, for anybody wondering why I'm doing these big pauses, is because when I highlight this, I have enough pausing that I can have like a slow fade in and a slow fade out. Because I put these on YouTube as well, and I want to have the little bit of extra space so I can have a nice, clean, quiet fade in. So that's why I do these extra pauses. So in a month, Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out. We hope. It might get delayed again for all we know. There are a lot of issues surrounding that company right now, that game right now, that is being taken very seriously by some, being completely absolved by others, but most importantly, just being bitched about constantly on the internet and social media because that's what the internet does. Normally, you would think right now that I'd be talking about the crunch time. I don't really care about that so much. Because personally, I don't think crunch is necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how the crunch is being done. Simply put, if you are being forced into crunch, that's always a bad thing. But if you're given the option and you're compensated well for that, because apparently, and this is just reports that I've seen, that not only are people getting paid time and a half for overtime, they are also getting a share of the profits, like a select share of the profits from the game. Like they're getting a certain percentage. And it's all being pulled together and given to everybody. Now that may, or whether or not it's true, it's not really that important at this point because we're never truly going to know until it's all said and done. It's all speculation at this point. To me, most crunch is, I don't support any crunch, or sorry, I don't like any crunch, but there are some amounts of crunch that I will accept. Not support, but accept. And in the end, I don't think it's really the corporation's fault. I mean, it is them making that decision, but I think we as gamers need to hold a bigger share of that responsibility than we ever give ourselves credit for, ever own up to. Because if we didn't bitch every time a game got delayed, there wouldn't be so much crunch. That's just the reality of it. But anyways, that's not the issue I care about. This is not the issue that got me wanting to talk about stuff. This is something that came up a while ago, but today, on Reset Era, it was brought back up, and now that I'm doing this stream, I really wanted to talk about it, and it gave me a pretty good thread to look through that I could really sink my teeth into. So, as we get into it here, this is a thread that says that CD Projekt Red is a transphobic company and it's time we stop making excuses for them. So I want to, ahead of time, tell you right now that this specific video, this specific segment of the stream, I will be going through several things that they put out as examples of why CD Projekt Red is transphobic. And I'm not going to discertain which way I lean on these issues. What I will be doing, as much as possible in every one of these examples they give, is give a reason for why it could be perceived as transphobic, and also why it could be perceived as either an honest mistake or whatever CD Projekt Red is saying in response is actually truthful. So basically, I'm saying a good reason for why CD Projekt Red is transphobic and a reason for why they're not. And at the end, I will tell you how I actually feel at the end of this. But for now, we're just going to go through this thread as a whole. Now, I'm not going to go through all this because, again, this is just more... I want to go through the examples in the context of stuff. So, the first one is that infamous, did you just assume their gender tweet? So somebody was just saying, like, randomly, I want more guys, and Cyberpunk responded with, did you assume their gender? Now, I'm not going to read all this stuff because I really don't necessarily need, because it's pretty obvious what's going on here. So, for example, this tweet. So, obviously, the joke is that for such a long time, if you misgendered a person, whether it was intentional or accidental, people would immediately... There was a select number of trans... Because I don't want to blanket all trans people. A lot of trans people are pretty chill and understand that they can be misgendered sometimes. It might hurt them a little bit on the inside, but they understand that some people can make that mistake. But obviously, some people take it very, very over the top and will be like, did you just assume my gender? And that used to be a common meme all the time. So this specifically in 2018 was a pretty hot meme. So Cyberpunk memed, basically. So on both sides. So first, to say that they're transphobic would be perceivable. Because again, how many people who on the internet, whether it's Reddit, 4chan, Twitter, etc., say this and are truly transphobic because they're using it to shit on trans people? 100% that is the case. So it is perceivable that it is exactly what it entails. It's possible. Now, on the flip side, it's a joke. It could also be a joke. I'm not saying it is a joke. And honestly, I'm not, in this specific scenario, I actually don't know. It could have been, like, either way, it's a joke, but could it be a joke because they think it's stupid that trans people get so offended when people accidentally misgender them? Or are they making a joke because it's in light of all the times that this is being used as a meme? Could it just be them being like, hey, we can meme too? Like, it could just be a really stupid effort to try to make a meme. And I think a lot of what the possibilities are with this could just be down to they tried to make a joke at the expense of other stupidity on the internet, and it just was the wrong decision. So that's a thing that I go with both sides. And they also, in this point, say that they were sorry for all those offended by one of the responses sent from our account earlier. Harming anyone was never our intention. Now, this specific poster says that anytime somebody has to apologize, they always do the, we're sorry to those who were offended. Now, to me, again, it's saying, like, there is never a scenario where somebody could actually be an honest apology. But again, I'm playing both sides here, so I give this person full credit to feel that it might just be a fake apology. But I can also open the door to the possibility that it actually is a genuine apology. This is where I say that in both cases, each outcome is likely. And I don't know the answer to that question. Now, this person uses random tweets to say that, hey, it's probably a fake apology because people got mad at it. Again, I want to remind people that the internet gets mad over everything. So it's just because, like, oh, they're thinking this is just evidenced by the responses because people got mad about the apology. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that these specific people that they're giving the examples for are probably transphobic. Now, all these tweets. So this one, yeah, that person's probably either transphobic or is just one of those guys that just fights anything that the SJW side or what they perceive to be the SJW side does. Because I notice that all the time on the internet, that it doesn't matter if a genuine point is being made, if it's being made by someone that is on the side they don't like, they'll just fight it anyway. We see that with both sides of the debate. I see the left do this with the right. I see the right do this with the left. It's a common thing. This one doesn't mean shit. This one was seriously disappointed that you guys didn't apology. I hate this. Somebody's like, I'm disappointed that you guys had to apologize, that you guys didn't apologize. Not had to apologize, is that you guys apologized. They're well within the right to apologize, guys, because it probably did offend somebody. Whether you think or not it should be offensive to people is not the point, because anybody can be offended by anything. And if they feel like they might have offended more than one person, they're well within the right to go, yeah, we probably should apologize, just so we can make people feel like we didn't mean to harm them. Because at the end of the day, we're a public company. We don't want to feel like we specifically want to go after people, whether or not they're transphobic. Let's keep that in mind. They may want to just say this because they don't want people to think that they're transphobic. They may also be doing it because they don't actually want to hurt trans people, and they just went, shit, we made a mistake. Okay, we should probably correct that. And then this thing, same deal. Guys just being fucking pissy because somebody apologized because they don't like the fact when people apologize. Same situation with this thing from GOG, which I didn't even know was part of CD Projekt Red. I didn't actually know that. They did the won't be erased hashtag, which was something that came out of Trump trying to take, I think it was trans people out of the military. I think that's when it was, or when it was just trans people in general. I can't remember. And they specifically used that hashtag. Now, again, for the side that thinks that CD Projekt Red is transphobic, you can take that. Because again, this is a tag that was being used in support of trans people, and they used it for something else. So they could be using it as a way to just piggyback off of it. I think this one is probably not nearly as transphobic as they're probably making it seem like, because I don't know if it's necessarily transphobic to just piggyback off of a trending hashtag. I don't know if that's a phobic thing. I don't know if that's a hate thing. I think that just might be using an issue to amplify a message, which, by the way, in marketing, let's be completely honest, is kind of clever. But at the same time, like I said, on the other side of it, I don't know if they're necessarily trying to take a shot at anything. They're just using a hashtag that's popular right now. So that one, I don't necessarily think you can really put too much towards. This is the one that got the most attention when it really happened. It's this specific poster that had obviously a little bit of a bulge here. And for me, I'm just going to put my personal thoughts to this poster. I love this poster because I like a lot of things that are sexual. It's just the reality of what I am. I have a bunch of fucking figurines on there. By the way, I think I should point this out. If anybody ever asks why there are basically all women as this thing, I'll make a pretty honest explanation. When I bought all of these, I really wasn't open to being bisexual at that point. I'm 32, by the way, right now. I really only became like aware of my bisexuality. Like I was maybe curious at best in my early 20s. I really didn't become like full-blown bisexual, like fully committed. Like, yeah, no, this isn't like just me thinking, well, what if? No, this is like, I know that I am this pretty much till like 26, 27. And almost all of these were bought before this. So, and this is also at that time, once I finished buying all these, I went, okay, shit, I need to stop spending so much money on this. This is a bad habit. So if I had started this while I was fully convinced I was bisexual and committed to that ideology, and now to this point, it's no different. I'm very sexually attractive to men just like I am with women. So had I been that today, there would be a lot more sexy anime boys on the shelf. But because of that, it's not as much now. So going back to this, trans. Still aroused by that. That's still hot to me. So at the time when I looked at this, I just looked at it and said, I don't think this is hateful. I think it's just sexualization. I think it's just like what we see in the media today, overly sexualizing everything. And if I'm not wrong, I think that, yeah, here's the comments here. So, and this again, in response to the criticism that was raised about it, the following justification. And to me, that wording just makes it sound like, oh, they're just trying to cover their tracks. So this is what they said. This is, what was the person there? what did this person say? Was she like a lead design? I can't remember what she specifically was, because it was a woman saying this, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. Personally, for me, this person is sexy. I like how this person looks. However, this model used, their beautiful body is used for corporate reasons. They are displayed there just as a thing, and that's the terrible part of it. Saying that corporations overly sexualize people and don't care about their human rights, human decency, which we know that to be true. It's very true. So don't kid yourselves. This is all to show that much like our modern world, hypersexualization in advertisements is just terrible. It was a conscious choice on our end to show that in this world, a world where you are a cyberpunk, a person fighting against corporations, that advertisement is what you're fighting against. Now, this is a thing too that people are saying, oh, they're just, like this person says, it rings hollow. So the most apparent being that CD Projekt Red, themselves a massive corporation, are content to invoke this imagery and defend its use while simultaneously promoting the game as diverse and inclusive. I don't see the connection, honestly. Like, again, the world that you are playing in has nothing to do with the company's outlook. Because there are games out there that feature Nazis, and the company doesn't just outright say they're against Nazism, it's pretty much just implied. But in this case, they're showing hypersexualization of trans people while also saying that we are diverse and inclusive. So they're doing more than what a lot of companies would do in these situations. So to me, that would apply that they are, in fact, saying what they are saying, because they're saying that this is a thing where you're supposed to be against corporations in this game. And we won't know the answer to that question until we actually play the game. We will know by the time that this game comes out and we have all played through it whether or not that rings true. If it turns out that this game is actually pro-corporation the entire game, then we have a different story, don't we? So in response, because I went with the CD Projekt Red side first, for this person's side, I have a harder time making a strong case about it. The only thing I can say is just, look, if you're the kind of person that would take offense to something like this because you think it's just sexualizing trans people as a whole, I guess I can accept that because, like I said, I can accept most reasons for things. But, like, the idea that I don't know if I can support them saying that, oh, they don't actually mean what they're saying. The only way I can defend their position is just by saying they're allowed to share that opinion. So this is one of the very few things where I'm going, I don't know if you can actually say for sure that they're just lying, because I don't know if you can necessarily prove that. Because, let's be honest here, there could be people within that company that are transphobic, but that doesn't mean the company as a whole is. Even if the person at the top is, the rest of the entire company could be fully inclusive and still make games that are like that. The company is still diverse and inclusive by that logic. And then all this stuff is mostly... Okay, so this goes to a little bit. They say the company operates from a country that is in the midst of a nationwide crackdown on all trans people. I don't necessarily know if that means anything. I don't know if that means just because the country itself is cracking down on trans people, whatever that means, that it means that CD Projekt Red automatically would be following the same thing. I mean, hell, we're like I'm not American, but a lot of people in the States clearly aren't in support of the current regime right now in the United States. But does that mean every American is pro-Republican? No. So to me, that specific thing doesn't mean anything. Let's see. So there's a quote here. As a studio, we are such an amalgamation. I don't like amalgam. I just like amalgamation. We are such an amalgamation of different people who have different approaches to political, religious, spiritual, and internal life. Also, when it comes to sexual orientations or political sympathies. At a studio, we always try to cultivate openness and approach it in such a way that everyone can have a voice and to represent each of these shades, as long as it is, of course, within the law and reason, so that each player can find here something for everyone and find answers to your own questions. I don't see, like, unless you're just saying they're flat out lying or just window dressing. Again, it's just, for the sides of each side, CD Projekt Red is saying we're inclusive and we're open to ideas, and the other side is saying, well, we think they might be lying, or we think they might be facetious, or they might be like a half truth. Again, I guess you can make both cases, but again, like when it's a he said, I don't know why I always do he said. It's just like I can't help myself. If it's a he said, she said situation, or a they said situation for this matter, it's really just up to what side you're on, I guess. And if I'm going to try to play this down the middle, I think it's a wash. I think it's a wipe. So I think so far we have 2 draws and 2 sides where I can clearly make a position here. The character creative, I don't know if I really have anything to that. And the cosplay stuff, it's cosplay in itself is still very sexualized. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't know if this really means anything, because again, it's like what I said earlier with the corporation stuff. Media is always sexual because it sells. So I don't know if this is indicative of anything. And I think that was the last real thing. Content to exploit both their workers. That's just a corporate thing. I don't know if it necessarily means that it's for trans for financial gain. I think it's just in general they exploit everything for financial gain. So again, I don't know if that necessarily does anything. So I glossed over a couple things, but really the core of it was just those few examples that I like, the tweets and stuff. So this is where I honestly stand on whether or not CD Projekt Red is transphobic. If you had to put a gun to my head and made me decide if it's a yes or no question, the answer to me is no. And it's not for all the things I even listed here. It's for one simple reason. If this company was truly transphobic, they would not let you create a trans character. Because in Cyberpunk, you will have all the power if you were the protagonist. If you are truly transphobic, why would you want a trans person to have the power? Why would you want them to be able to overcome the corporate industry? Why would you want them to be overcoming oppression, to be overcoming whatever they face? That sounds like a company that wants trans people to feel better about themselves, that wants them to feel powerful. Because if the game was just having trans NPCs, and all those NPCs were sexualized or put in a negative light, then you could make that case. But if Cyberpunk is allowing you to not only play as really whatever you want, but to play that person with massive amounts of power and ability, you could be super OP in this game and do everything that you could want to do in this game, whatever that may be. I don't understand how you could take just that core concept and say that this company is transphobic as a generalization. Can I leave the door open that there are people within the company that could be transphobic? Absolutely. And some of those tweets leave an open door to that possibility as well. They could also just made a really bad oversight, just trying to make a joke or just trying to piggyback off of a hashtag. You know, that is always possible. But in the end, I will take what this game is allowing players to do as the true indictment for what this company must actually feel like. Because if I can play as a non-binary character, as a transgender character, as a woman, as a male, I can make a very feminine-looking guy. I can make a very masculine-looking woman. I can do whatever I want. I can make the hottest woman I've ever seen and slap a dick on them. I can do whatever I want. With that amount of freedom, I have a really difficult time in believing that a company that would do that isn't inclusive, or at the very least open to the idea of diversity and inclusivity. Because a company that is against that ideology would never dare give players the freedom to put those characters in the most positive light they possibly could. And by that and that alone, I don't even feel like I need to make any more cases. Unless you can point out a literal case where the company themselves has put out a press release that legitimately just says, fuck trans people, we should exterminate them, they don't belong, all this shit. If you can do that, then we have a different story, don't we? But when your biggest reasons are tweets that were meant to be funny, an advertisement that is meant to display potentially, if the game is actually true to that when we play it, a corporate situation that we see today, And I guarantee you, when transgender people are even more open, because right now we're getting into a thing where right now, a lot more overweight people, bigger, whether you want to talk about, I guess for, like, I don't want to say fat, but let's just say it like that, where that's becoming a more commonplace in modeling and stuff like that. At some point, that will also extend to trans people. And if you think that they won't fall into those exact same situations that every other model gets put into, you're mistaken. So what that advertisement in Cyberpunk does, this advertisement, if you think that this would not be a reality, I think that not only is this reality going to happen, it will happen before 2077. In fact, I'm almost convinced that we'll see this by the end of this decade. That we'll see trans people modeling in major, and I'm not just talking like some like small ass thing here. I'm talking a major billboard that you see everywhere, and they will be super hypersexualized. In the next 10 years, you kidding me? That's going to happen. 2077? Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, well, assuming we even exist on this planet in 57 years, it's a whole different story. But if you're telling me that by 2077, that fucking advertisement won't exist, are you kidding me? There's going to be millions of those. There's going to be so many different variations. You kidding me? That's what corporations are. So unless we get rid of that entire corporate outlook on things, it's always going to be there. And it has nothing to do with transphobia. I truly believe that if they are doing what they say they are doing by showing what corporations would do, this is 100% true. And like I said, because of what the game is allowing you as the player to do, I have more than enough evidence, and very concrete evidence to that would make a better case for the company not being transphobic than being transphobic. Like I said, it's possible that somebody within the company, a select few, could be. And yeah, it's very possible that because that company right now is in a country that seems to be very transphobic, that it could also be something that could be bred into them. Could be something that might even be a majority. But clearly the ones that have the power to make decisions with this game have superseded that, because this game is going to be massively inclusive, because anyone of any gender identity can create themselves in this game. And I fully believe that no transphobic company would ever allow that freedom. So that's it. I'm going to do a quick perusing of Reddit to see if something popped up. I doubt it. But realistically speaking, we got through everything I wanted to. So this is something that I don't know how many of these like specifically rant streams will happen. I usually try to pepper them in with gameplay. There was enough here that I thought, you know what, this is going to be an hour, maybe a little bit more. Turns out it was going to be almost 2 hours. And obviously, it worked out nicely that I had more than enough to do a pretty substantial stream and gave me several clips to go through. So I'm really happy about that. And, you know, I hope I can do more of these. I also just hope, honestly, that I don't have enough of these issues that I have to do that anymore. But it's 2020. We're still not removed really from the Gamergate drama. It keeps flooding back in. And, you know, it's getting better, but I think it's also because I'm chilling out more. I used to get mad at so many things. I'm glad that I got that part of me out of my system, because it was pretty bad in some points. I don't like the person that I used to be, because I used to get upset at every little thing because I thought it was being forced. The reality is for every one thing that was being forced, there were two things that were happening naturally, but I didn't accept that anything could be natural at that point because I was so angry at the things that were being forced that I just never looked past that. But otherwise, the most important thing I just really want to say before I go is, again, there is nothing wrong with the direction we're heading in. The only thing that we should be criticizing of this progress is when it's shoved down our throat. That's the only thing. I don't ever appreciate anything being told to us like, you should be clapping, isn't this good? No, we'll know. We'll know when it's time to clap. We'll know when it's time to be happy and agree with things and move things forward. We don't need you to be like a director on like a TV talk show to say, all right, everybody, let's start clapping as the cameras go on. We'll know. The vast majority of us are on your side. We'll know. And we will be with you when we need to be. But not all of us are going to just go after every little thing. Because some of us kind of have a sanity we want to keep. As someone who used to be a adamant SJW or anti-SJW, I know what it means to throw myself at every little issue. Today, I don't do that. Today, I pick my spots because I generally want to go after things when it's a broader picture. The two things that I went through here being the Anita Sarkeesian stuff with the percentage of women featured in games was one thing, and the transphobia thing with CD Projekt Red is another. Because as a whole, those are two major issues that have a very, very large outcome in the end that will change a lot of things down the road. It's different from like, oh, this one bikini outfit got censored. If I did an article if I did a stream for every time that happened, good Lord, I'd never have enough time. So pick your spots, guys. This goes to both sides of the debate, by the way. If you are a super SJW, pick your fucking spots. You don't have to get mad at every single person that just says something you don't like. The same goes for you guys, anti-SJWs. And I say guys because let's be honest, it's like 99% dudes. Guys, pick your spots. Not everything is a conspiracy to just destroy the industry. Can we just understand that, like, more women are finally getting into the hobby that we all should be loving? And that with that, they kind of want a couple of things that they like too, because we all don't like the exact same things. I don't think every woman in the world wants to see a cascade of women in thongs, you know? I don't think every girl wants that. I don't even think every guy wants that, to be honest. So let's not just act like everything has to cater exactly to what we want. I try really hard to understand when things aren't for me. For example, Fortnite. I hate Fortnite, but I don't go around saying Fortnite is a cancer and shouldn't be a part of this industry. We shouldn't look at people who only play Fortnite as gamers. You know what I do? I go, you know what? I've tried Fortnite. I've tried Battle Royales as a whole. It's not my thing. And in fact, you know what? We should be giving Fortnite a massive amount of thanks because in a weird way, they create a genre that's taking a lot of kids, a lot of really, really, really loudmouth kids off of the games that we would have been playing and love to play. So you know what? We should always give them credit for that. Not fuck this game. Fuck people who play this game. They don't belong. They aren't gamers. They should die. That shouldn't be a thing we do. The reality is we should be as open as we can be. Now, if someone's an asshole, treat them like they're an asshole. But if someone is just someone who has a different perspective, different tastes, different opinions than you, unless that opinion is you shouldn't be allowed on the platform, you shouldn't be allowed to be considered a gamer, you shouldn't be allowed to enjoy these things, then that's a different story. But if they just have a different opinion, like, I think more women should be characters in games. I think more women should be allowed to be, like, lead developers in games. I think more women should be playing video games. And you go, and you tweak out? No, that's the problem. And the same goes if you're an SJW and you think every time a woman has a bikini outfit that you don't go, guys, not everything is an issue. Sometimes it's good to let things go. It's good for your heart. It's good for your brain. It's good for your mental and your physical health. So do yourself a favor and pick your spots. I know I am, and I am a much happier person because of it. I'm still a miserable piece of shit, don't get me wrong, but I'm a less miserable piece of shit than I used to be. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for checking out the stream, or if you're checking out the VOD on either Twitch or YouTube, or, well, I guess you won't be seeing this part after any of the clips, but either way, like, thank you for checking out whatever it is you're checking out. My YouTube channel is CS Radical. It's pretty easy to find. I will be back at some point this weekend, I hope. I hope I can get time at the very least to finish the Battlefront 2 campaign. I want to do that. I also, now that I noticed that the Red Strings Club, I think the game is called, is coming off Xbox Game Pass soon, so I might actually put Night in the Woods to the side just so I can get this one game done. So hopefully there's that. So I hope to stream at least sometime this weekend, but I don't know when, and I don't know what. I just hope that it's something, right? Otherwise, if somehow you don't see me for a little while, the next guaranteed stream will be Wednesday at 8 p.m., or in some cases 9 p.m. because we've been late 2 weeks in a row. Oops, sorry about that. But Wednesdays, guaranteed, we will do a podcast, the VCR podcast, where we go through what we've been playing and talk about various subjects in the gaming news scene in the last 7 days. So check all that stuff out. Thank you so much. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at CS Radical as well. I give you my Instagram. It is on the front page when the stream starts, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I can't even remember the last time I used that account, so I wouldn't expect much there. Otherwise, thank you very much for checking this out. I will see you on the next stream. Enjoy the rest of your day, however long it may be. Take care, everybody.